I am. You may be seated. Good Shabbos, everyone.
Good Shabbos.
I remember the thrill of seeing Porgy and Bess for the first time. Porgy and Bess was a 1935 English language tragic opera by George Gershwin, Jewish. It features a cast of classically trained African American singers, a daring artistic choice in that era. Porgy is a disabled Black street beggar living in Catfish Row, based on the actual Cabbage Row, a very depressed section of Charleston, South Carolina. In the second act, Porgy seems resigned to his life, but happily so, as he sings, "I got plenty of nuttin'." Yet that is actually not true. Porgy actually has a lot. Porgy is filled, for example, with ingenuity. For example, he has made a cart out of junk and a smelly old goat, but this provides him with mobility and a sense of freedom. Even more important, he is a wellspring of love, spirit, and strength. He takes in Bess, nurtures her back to health, and love redeems them both, at least for a time. Sometimes people who to onlookers seem to have so little actually have so much. And while those who sometimes to us seem to have so much often have merely plenty of nuttin'. Let's take, for example, the case of Lot, a character in tomorrow's Torah reading. In contrast to the strong, rich character of Porgy, Lot seems to lack character and seems rather unconcerned about it. He's introduced at the beginning of the reading when the text informs us that our ancestor Abram went forth as Hashem had commanded. It then adds, Vayelech ito Lot, that Lot went with him. It does not tell us who Lot was or what his relationship to Abram might be, although a bit later we are told that he is actually Abram's nephew, although we do not know then which of Abram's siblings is Lot's father. In the rest of the chapter, we find high drama when Abraham and Sarah are in Egypt, and Abram gets in trouble with Pharaoh. Where is Lot in all of this? When difficulties arise. Another verse in the beginning of the next chapter also speaks of Lot as a hanger-on, a Me Too sort of fellow who nonetheless leaned heavily on his uncle, particularly in the good times. The text states, Abraham went out of Egypt, he, his wife, all their possessions, the Lot imo, and Lot with him. The two Hebrew words, velot imo, sum up the man. Lot was a nachschlepper, literally one who drags behind, and thus is the Yiddish word for a coattail rider. He initiated nothing and gave nothing. He was merely a tag-along who took advantage of Uncle Abram, taking everything that he could lay his hands on. When I was growing up, I loved 1001 Nights, a collection of Middle Eastern folktales. Also known as the Arabian Nights, it was framed by a narrative of a beautiful Scheherazade who falls out of favor with her husband, the king. In order to save her own life, she has to tell him a brand new tale that he approves of every single night. And among the tales were stories of Sinbad the sailor. And in one of these, Sinbad found himself in a deep gorge, which was surrounded by huge cliffs. No matter how hard he tried, Sinbad could not climb out of that cave. One day he managed to tie himself to the leg of a very large bird that visited the gorge. When the bird began to fly, it carried Sinbad also. Slowly, however, the dead weight of the sailor began to have its telling effect on the bird. The bird had either to get rid of the hanger on or give up the idea of flying. In a sense, Lot was the biblical Sinbad, for he tied his dead spiritual weight to his illustrious uncle and proved himself an even greater impediment to Abraham's striving for God than the legendary sailor was to the flight of the huge bird. Another defect in the character of Lot and similar folks is that they seem to resist learning and growing. Now think of it. Abraham was a larger than life figure who guided an entire generation and who helped shape the character of an entire people. Yet he had little influence on the nephew whom he at least tried to raise as a son. For whatever reason, some people resist growing up, and some people resist growing at all. An illustration of that failure is Lot's choice of neighbors and friends. When strife arose between Abram's herders and those of Lot, Abraham offered his nephew the choice of the land he wanted. Lot does not hesitate even for a moment or reflect upon how his choice might impact his uncle cum father. He immediately chose to settle on a very fertile and wealthy plot of land. And he does so despite the proximity to the highly corrupt and treacherous city of Sodom. Lot was willing or unconcerned about exposing himself and his children to their maleficent influence because of his greed for material possessions. This was actually hinted at earlier in the portion when the text, if you recall, told us that Abraham left with his wife, with all his possessions, velot imo, and Lot with him. But who is the him that's referred to? The actual immediate masculine antecedent is not Abraham at all. It's actually kol harachush, all the possessions. That is, Lot is not there because of Abraham or with Abraham. Lot is there, the text is telling us, because Abraham had possessions that Lot wanted to attach himself to. By placing Lot not in the list of people in Abraham's entourage, but after the possessions, we find who Lot really is and who he cares about or what he cares about. And it is the possessions, not Sarah and Abraham. He's after their Yerusha, their wealth, their legacy. It's no wonder then that ingratitude marks his person. When Abraham and Lot parted company, and Abraham granted Lot's choice of the best parcel of land in the entire region, Lot accepted it as a matter of course. Although he did nothing to earn it, he felt entitled to it and did not offer a single word of thanks. Later in our portion, when Lot is kidnapped and taken captive, Abraham wages a fierce battle with the captors to liberate his kinsman, his nephew. Lot received his freedom passively and again did not utter a single word of recognition or appreciation to his valorous and self-sacrificing uncle. Now you might say to me, Rabbi, really? What's the big deal? Okay, Lot was a youngish kid. All right, immature, sure. But a lot of things here seems to be a matter of etiquette. It doesn't pay, Rabbi, to get upset over such little things. But we just spent the high holy days thinking about all the building blocks of character and how each time we did something to not recognize those in our lives or to not follow through, to leave people feel as if they are holding our ball, we have done something wrong, an emotional wound, a spiritual hurt that reverberates in other souls. Little things do matter. They accumulate and count heavily. As the Yiddish saying goes, von a bissel und a bissel wird a volle Schüssel. From a little and a little, the bowl is suddenly filled. In 1869, French amateur lepidopterist Etienne Lepidold Trouvelot imported to this country the spongy moth in an attempt to hybridize a species of silk-producing moths. Several adult spongy moths escaped and unleashed havoc. From that small start of a few missing moths, millions of acres in the northeastern United States have been defoliated. Today, the spongy moth problem is more widespread than ever and causes some $868 million of damage yearly. From a little and a little, the bowl is suddenly filled. So let us beware of the little moths of greed, ingratitude, self-promotion, and deceit. They did a destructive job on Lot's soul. His faults increased and multiplied, infecting his soul. And in the end, he got plenty of something, but he became plenty of nothing. Garnished nothing, as we say in Yiddish. Poet Ella Wheeler Wilcox wrote an amiable and astute rhyme that well describes the difference between Lot and Abraham and the people they represent. There are two kinds of people on earth today, two kinds of people, no more, I say. Not the good or the bad, for it's well understood. The good are half bad and the bad are half good. Not the rich or the poor for to count one's wealth. You must know the state of their conscience and health. Not the two kinds of people on earth, I mean, are the people who lift, the people who lean. Wherever you go, you'll find the world's masses are ever divided into these two classes. And strangely enough, you will find two, I mean, there is only one lifter to 20 who lean. In which class are you? Are you easing the load of the overtaxed lifters who toil down the road? Are you a leaner who lets others bear your portion of worry and labor and care? Unfortunately, like the multiplying of the spongy moth, Lot seems to have spawned a multitude of like-minded persons, people who are leaners and hangers-on, noch-schleppers and parasites, who take and do not give anything in return, not even a word of gratitude or thanks. What we need today are the Abrahams and Porgies, people who stand for something, who lift for others, who give of themselves and take giant steps for the improvement, not only for those around them, but for the improvement of society and the benefit of all. May we too be counted among their number. Shabbat Shalom.